Good morning. Welcome to Green Dragon Temple. My name is Erin Merk, and I'm very delighted to be able to share this space with you this morning and share in the Dharma together. And we've already been doing that, just being in this space, walking in, settling, tuning into our bodies, doing some ceremonial activity. So already we're sharing in the Dharma. And before I launch into some of the main themes for today, I wanted to wish us all a most joyful and nourishing Pride Day. And one of my Dharma friends dropped this by just before the talk. Not sure what I think I'll put it, maybe I'll put it right. Any advice? Right here. Okay. Thank you also to the Tenzo for providing me with the gift of the flag, which I was going to make one. It was a lot easier. And so my talk is not actually going to be like an official Pride talk, just because I wanted to talk on a different theme, but I do want to acknowledge the day and just touch into it a little bit. So just as a reminder for us all, or if you're not very familiar with Pride or the history of Pride, 55 years ago, Friday, marked the anniversary of what's called the Stonewall riots. I don't know if any of you were there at the time, but on June 28th in 1969, a group of queer folks, mostly led by trans women of color, notably, some of you have probably heard of Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, decided to stand up to the ongoing police brutality that was happening, not just to the queer community, but in that case, because folks gathering identified as queer. And at that time, exhibiting any kind of homosexual behavior could land a person in jail. And the cops, in arresting people, they would kind of come through and arrest people in really humiliating, violent, aggressive, and brutal ways. So on that night, the group gathered there was just fed up and decided to resist. And as you all know, this event, which went on for about 6 days, 6 days of sitting in and resisting, resulted in what is now the ongoing global fight for LGBTQIA+ rights. And today, Pride Day is a lot about celebrating queer visibility and queer joy, just putting numbers together. I think right at this moment, the San Francisco Pride Parade, which is one of the largest in the world, is opening. I think it might be the Dykes on Bikes right now, which is one of the best parts. But it's also a day to kind of lump up our reserves to be able to continue ongoing resistance to all that's happening now. And I'm sure that if you read the news, you know that while the arrow on the new, this is actually Progress Pride Flag 1.0, there's a 2.0 that also has a symbol for intersex folks. And there's a forward-moving arrow that you can see there. And we've actually taken some steps back, I would say, in the country. So there's a lot more work to do. And I think today is a day to just rally and fill ourselves with energy. And if you yourself don't personally inhabit the claim the I experience when it comes to queerness or queer rights. Just want to invite you in. It's your history too. And to consider joining us. Of course, we've all heard of allyship. There's also another frame that I really love, which is called being an accomplice. So inviting you to be an accomplice. And there are many ways that you can participate, all of which I think starts with education, just learning about the history that we've all been denied in a kind of mainstream way, and young folks are being denied right now, all across the country and world. I'm a high school teacher, and I'm proud to say that my school, I don't think our school could be more queer, honestly, and queer affirming and just very visible. And I also am one of the teachers of a class where we get to share this history along with lots of other, history, centering lots of different histories. So I wanted to recommend to you all, if you have time today or this week, there's a really short documentary that I love, that I find very inspiring, both for my practice and just to hear about some of the figures in this movement that I never learned about as a young person. It's called Stonewall Forever. It's only about 20 minutes long and widely available on YouTube. And not only do you get to hear from some of the elders who were kind of experiencing this movement firsthand, or experiencing Stonewall firsthand and pre-Stonewall as well. But they're also the documentaries created by youth activists who are continuing and broadening the movement today. So it's really a tearjerker. It's a beautiful film. Warning, there's a lot of swearing, but if you can get past the swearing, if you can kind of just, I think you'll find it inspiring as well. So that is my acknowledgement. I'm touching into pride. And I'm going to change gears a little bit, so might be a little clunky. But I want to tell you all about a little bit about these past 3 weeks. Today marks the day when I'll be leaving Green Gulch, sad, after spending the 3 weeks here. And I've had the blessed experience, just the incredible experience of participating in a 21-day ceremony called Dharma Transmission ceremony. And the Tanto, Timo, who's not here today, invited me to give the talk today as kind of a way to make a little seal, I think, on the ceremony. And maybe also just because I was around and there was an empty spot. But thank you, Timo, for inviting me. This ceremony requires just so much support from the entire community. And I really want to express my just deep and heartfelt gratitude to everyone who participated. It's been such a joyful experience for me. And really, you all brought the ceremony to life. And I think at least people have been expressing to me, it's a ceremony that's about me receiving Dharma transmission, but it's also just everyone. It's a ceremony for everyone. And I think, people could feel that. I especially want to thank my teacher, Ajun Linda Kutz, for inviting me to participate in this ceremony, and also for all of the ongoing, detailed, loving efforts that she put into every single moment of this ceremony. I will treasure this experience for my entire life. Thank you, precious teacher. I also want to thank Green Gulch's Abbot GDU, for supporting me to be here, for your inspiring teachings that I was able to experience while here, and I'm sorry for missing the one. And also the gift of this beautiful kotsu that GDU made out of walnuts. I don't entirely know what it is yet, but I will learn. And I'm just, I feel, thank you. I also want to thank Lauren, Kokyo, Tova, and Carolyn for all of the work preparing for and also participating in various ceremonial roles. Throughout this ceremony, there's a lot to do, and this is on top of all of their other jobs. So thank you all so much. And finally, all of the Green Gulch staff and students who just helped in so many different ways, volunteering, just even letting me stay here, giving me shelter and food and being kind. It's just, I really felt the vibrant practice here, and it's such a gift. And I feel so full with everyone's practice. So there's so many people to thank, and I'm gonna stop here with it, but it will keep going for months. So thank you. So although most of the Dharma transmission ceremony is kind of private, it's really intimate ceremony between teacher and disciple. There are some public and participatory aspects of the ceremony that maybe even some of you, if you come here regularly, or if you came to any of this recent one-day sittings during the past 3 weeks, you might have kind of seen it happening. And one of those ceremonies that involves other people and is right out in the open is called the daily Jundo. And these are a series of circumambulations. As I understand it, Jindo actually means circuit, or literally means circuit or circumambulation. People can correct me if I'm wrong. And each morning of this 21 days began with a circumambulation to 12 different altars around Green Gulch. Altars representing various Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that are awakening beings, and other important members of both the Zen and larger Buddhist family. So the person in training, in this case me, makes offerings of light, incense, full body prostrations if possible, also a specific mantra for each altar, and then a mantra for walking the circumambulation, and ending with a kind of prayer and dedication to all beings that takes place right outside here on the Zendo deck. It's a beautiful, I found it to be a beautiful circular ceremony. And I think I was so overwhelmed when I first got here and just trying to learn all the different forms and jump right in and get into the rhythm of the Green Gulch schedule, that it took me a few days to notice all the circles. And then I really started to feel them, and how there's just this circuit of energy and nourishment happening in this ceremony. So for each Jindo, there is a support person called the Jiko. And the Jiko's job is to carry this little incense, little box where there's burning charcoal and incense as well. And they also carry at some points a bowing mat. And they kind of come after walk after the person who is making the offerings. And they volunteer to wake up before the wake-up bell every morning, which is pretty early. And then also there's another Jindo later in the day. So shout out to all the people here who volunteered. There were so many. I got to do this ceremony or be in this ceremony with so many different kinds of people. And I found that this was a really enjoyable aspect of the 21 days. Just getting to kind of be in this choreography together with really different styles. So sometimes I didn't know what direction they were going to come from, or where they were going to go, or how they were going to do things. And so we would just kind of figure it out together. And it was just a really beautiful expression, I think, of our way of practicing in ceremony. Ceremony is a big part of Soto Zen lineage, and also our way of practicing in community with others. So it's a very difficult ceremony to do by yourself. And so while engaging in these ceremonies, day after day and ceremony after ceremony for 21 days. So that's just one of the ceremonies. There are other ceremonies of bowing and offering throughout the day, and then just the regular schedule as well of lots of bows and offering and chanting and taking in the teachings. Um, what really comes out, what's really alive for me today is the full body experience that our Zen tradition offers. Although we can definitely get very intellectual about Zen, and it can be really fun, and we can engage our intellect quite actively. It can be very helpful to study in this way. This ceremony reminded me, in my view, that our Soto Zen practice is fundamentally centering the body. It's really a big body practice, and centers the body in really powerful ways. Helps us to understand our body as kind of the ultimate Dharma gate for being able to wake up. And at the end of this talk, we'll be chanting the Bodhisattva vows. So one of the vows is Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. And this ceremony, along with the schedule, the kind of regular practices that we do every day, I could really feel the Dharma gate of the body. So from the first moment of the ceremony, even like amidst all the overwhelm and kind of being tired and trying to figure out where everything was and what to do, I really felt that my job was to offer my body to the ceremony. And once I kind of got into it and felt like, okay, I'm starting to understand where I should go and what time and all of that, I could also feel the offering back, the return from the ceremony to me, feeling the gifts of the practice that we have here, the gifts of compassion and wisdom kind of flowing in from the ceremony. And so from my experience in the ceremony and just being able to be here in residence with my body for these 3 weeks, I felt so strongly how important this is in our lineage to bring our bodies into the space and practice with our bodies. Also, with so much repetition and kind of rhythm, which is usually how we practice in Zen training anyway, there's a lot of just day after day, following the schedule and kind of surrendering yourself to the schedule, to the forms that are happening, that are put before you, and the container that has been created. I really felt a lot of softening and opening and humbling, just feeling that it was okay to let go and open to this because there's such a beautiful container for practicing. And in opening in this way and feeling so open, the sensation that I'm left with here is just how precious and fragile our human existence is, and also how much possibility there is for us to support one another, to untangle and to transform our collective ancient twisted karma, is what we often talk about, ancient twisted karma. Just all of the stories, our personal stories and cultural stories, and the larger histories that intertwine and keep us, kind of caught. And what possibility there is for us if we have the support, both of the container of the amazing lineage and teachings that are here for us, and that we're all amazingly here to receive them. That this is really our possibility as humans. This is what we can do with our human life, with our human body, with our human mind. So I wrote a little poem about this ceremony based on these 9 Dogen teachings that I was studying for months to be ready. I thought I would just share it. It's called Transmission Poem. Practicing together, warm hand to hand, Buddha and Buddha, awake, intertwined, blood vein flowing. Our original face leads the way home, a map of love, breath, body goes beyond. Love. This sensation of tenderness and softening reminded me of a teaching that, from what I know, is taught quite explicitly in Tibetan Buddhist lineages. It's also taught in our lineage in a different way, which I'll talk about, called the 4 reminders. Some of you might have heard of this teaching. They're considered a very basic foundational training, usually given to students at the kind of beginning of their practice. And often a teacher will want to make sure that a student is grounded in these teachings before receiving other teachings. Because sometimes if you maybe start too soon, the fear is that you'll maybe get too much in your head or miss kind of the point. So foundational teaching of the 4 reminders. And the 4 reminders in this structure are, number 1, human life is precious. Number 2, all is impermanent. Death can come suddenly and without warning. And number 3, all actions have a result. Humans create karma. Number 4, if you are human, you will experience suffering at some point. These reminders, I appreciate them because they're kind of like a tidy little package that sum up foundational teachings of Buddhism. So it's easy to remember also, so it's kind of nice to just turn them. And they're considered powerful thoughts that we can have. I think in Tibetan lineages, the idea is that you actually put the thoughts into your being. You try to actually think these thoughts, and then that's not our approach. But I think that we create the conditions for these kinds of thoughts to arise spontaneously. And one example, I love the sort of little bit like sneakier or subtler way of this lineage. We actually have the first 2 of these teachings inscribed on the wooden plaque called the Han, which you may have heard before. It's an instrument that's used to call people to the meditation hall. And on the Green Gulch has 2 Hans. So there's one right outside here that you're welcome to take a look at. And there's also one out there in Cloud Hall. You'll hear it. It's the first 2 of the reminders. So on the Han, it says, great is the matter of birth and death. No forever. Gone, gone. Awake, awake each one. Don't waste this life. Great is the matter of birth and death. No forever. Gone, gone. Awake, awake each one. Don't waste this life. So although you might not necessarily receive that teaching unless you are assigned to the job of hitting the Han, which usually happens pretty early in a person's practice here. Nonetheless, when we hear the sound, the wooden clunk, this is our call to head to the Zendo. So this is what a person does to not waste their life. Come to the Zendo. And in the Zendo, we sit in silence together, allowing ourselves to just sit, to just be opening to the experience of the present moment, to the experience of body and breath, which you can do right now. And although most of us will turn and face the wall when we practice Zazen in this lineage, we engage in this very vulnerable and intimate practice together in community. So it's something we do together. And I've noticed that our ability to stay present and engaged is enhanced because there are others practicing with us. So it's the circles again, the feeling people's intention and willingness, even when you're tired, even when maybe there's other things that you're not sure, or you're not sure how useful this will be, or you feel busy. It's helpful to have other people committing to the same practice, to be there with you. Then I noticed while I was thinking about these 4 reminders, I noticed that one of the first teachings that we chant in the morning after we practice Zazen. So we get called by this Han that has the first 2 reminders on it. We chant the robe chant before we put on our robes, if we have them. And then we chant what's called the repentance vows. So we stand up and we face the altar. And these are the second 2 reminders. And the repentance vows go like this: all my ancient twisted karma, from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, born through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. So all my ancient twisted, or I've heard it also as tangled, kind of like that one, all my ancient twisted, tangled karma, from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, born through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. The repentance vows are there to remind us before we kind of launch out into our work in the world, or our work here, this is the world too, how we want to take care of our life. Each of us has a personal story and history. We carry the twisted and tangled legacies of our families, of our cultures, the wider cultural influences as well. And so our daily task as students of Zen is to approach these tangles with courage, with some curiosity, compassion, and steadiness, slowly by slowly teasing them apart. And this is what makes our human life so precious, that we can do this. We can allow some space between our kind of karmically driven impulses and our actions, what we decide to do next. We can actually learn to notice our habit patterns and to start to deliberately tease them apart, to examine them and decide which ones are actually aligned with our inmost request, our inmost values, and which ones we are ready to let go, that aren't really serving us or what we most want to do with our precious human life. I think that working with our ancient twisted karma is kind of like pulling out bindweed. This was my task on one of the community farming days a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure many of you have been tasked with pulling out bindweed or are familiar with it. It's actually really pretty. I didn't realize it was such a problem, but apparently it's a problem because it kind of not only tangles around other plants, but takes all their nutrients and kind of takes over. But it looks really cute. Looks like little flowers, and it's kind of everywhere. I didn't even realize it was in the garden of the place where I was staying, and I told someone, I was asking them about the garden. I said, well, luckily there's no bindweed here. And he was like, it's like literally all over the whole space. Anyway, also, it seems like it grows back, right? When you pull it out, it's already like growing back. And so I think working with our with our habit patterns, with our ancient twisted karma is very much like this process. Like, you're just going to have to come back to the same place over and over again and kind of try to get to the root. Sometimes you pull at it and it breaks off and it's like, okay, it's going to grow back right away. Then you try to like dig around it and then you're like, is this really worth it? But you just keep going, come back over and over. And I'm sure if you are curious and you want to see some of this bindweed, you can find it. It's all over the place. And just as a closing to that idea, I think, one of the reasons why we want to keep working at getting our personal bindweed taken care of is because then we'll be able to water the seeds that we most want to nourish. And we won't, our habit patterns won't be stealing all of our energy, taking all of our energy and all of our nutrients. Yeah, we'll be able to cultivate other seeds in us that may not have had the chance to flourish. So as I was thinking about this precious human life theme, I came upon a poem by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and it's a poem called A Precious Human Life. So I wanted to share just an excerpt. It's it's a pretty long poem, so I'll share just a little bit. A precious human life. No, sorry. A precious human. No, it is. A precious human life. Every day, think as you wake up. Today, I am fortunate to have woken up. I'm alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. Every day, think as you wake up. Today, I am fortunate to have woken up. I am alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. So in closing, before we get to if people have any questions, comments, or expressions, I just want to extend the wish for each person in this room to realize the preciousness of your own human life. And may we help one another know our preciousness, see our preciousness, and to support each other's practice. May we draw on our individual and collective practice as a source of strength to meet the challenges of the world with courage, creativity, and energy. And may we dedicate our practice to the benefit of all beings in all directions. So thank you very much. I think, not too bad. Okay. We have a little bit of time if people want to bring anything up or and Kika's coming around with a microphone just so that everyone can hear. No?
You can repeat the question.
Yes, I could repeat the question. Question, thank you. You're delightful. And where are you going next? Thank you. I am going back to San Francisco, where I live with my partner, Mary. She's right there behind you. And actually, we just got kicked out of our apartment. Well, we have to leave our apartment. So I think we'll be in San Francisco. But I will be going back to teaching high school in the fall. I'm a high school teacher at a school in San Francisco. But I'm a Zen Center priest as well. So I'm sure I'll be around. Hopefully, yes. Yes, question. Reminders, yes. Okay, number one, human life is precious. Number two, everything's impermanent. Death can come at any moment. Number three, humans create karma. So every action has a cause, or every result has a cause, and as humans, we're constantly creating karma. And so number four, if you're human, you're going to experience suffering. And I think those two are connected because how we respond to our suffering is kind of what we're interested in here, in kind of changing that. Because as we know, or as I know, I'll just speak for myself, when I'm suffering, I'm not always the most skillful person, right? So when I can really practice with how can I create some space between what happens when I'm hurting, or when I tune into my hurting, so that I don't harm others, so that I really learn how to accept the part of being human that is painful. Will the way that we respond create the same kind of karma or different kind of karma? The hope is with practice that for parts of our habits or our responses, ways of responding that feel harmful, like we're just kind of going along the stream of karma that we don't even know, it's ancient, we don't know how we got it, that we can actually be quite deliberate and choose how we want to respond in ways that actually hopefully benefit beings. Thank you.
Thank you for your talk, especially your intro. Really appreciate that. In your transmission poem, you mentioned love twice. I was wondering if you could expand on how you see the intersection of formal Zen practice and love.
Thank you. And that mic was on, so I think that came through. Yeah, I noticed that too. I actually hadn't noticed it until this morning when I was looking for the poem and writing it down on the paper. And I think it is connected to what I was describing earlier, just the feeling of the forms of this practice feel to me, and I don't know, maybe others have this experience too. They can feel at first a little unfamiliar, and maybe can feel a little funny in them if you're not used to, some of the forms. But when you start to learn them, and also with repetition, there's so much of putting your whole body, your whole self into it that allows this kind of relaxation. And so they start to feel, this is to me, this is, my poem, starts to feel really like a loving and tender experience. And for myself, when I practice with others, when I get that chance, because it's just such a wonderful, highly recommended if you ever want to get a chance to do residential practice or be a guest student, or we have lots of opportunities at Zen Center for that. It's so amazing to be with people in silence, doing the same thing together, and yet everyone's completely different, bringing a whole bag of, different energies and different issues that they're working on, or different ways that they may approach the practice. So I find that putting my body into the forms and allowing my body to go through the rhythm, I feel a lot of love and a lot of tenderness for all the beings in the room. So it really allows just my loving self to come forth. And I think it's because there's such a feeling of being held. Once you get past the feeling of this is like weird or unfamiliar, or I don't know, uptight or something, then I think it can feel quite tender and loving.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are a few online questions. One of them asks, when caring for someone who's ill, how to turn frustration into kindness.
Yeah, I would say, did everyone hear that? Okay, yes. That it's really important when you're being in the role of a caretaker, to have care for the one who's feeling frustrated. So to actually, when you notice yourself feeling frustrated, because it can be very frustrating, and I imagine the sort of repetition that I brought up in terms of Zen practice comes up in caretaking as well, or in lots of different situations. And it's not always enjoyable, right? It's not always an enjoyable experience. So remembering that you also need care, to care for the caretaker. And if you have the chance to take a little pause and do some practice of loving kindness for yourself as well, I think that can create some space around the experience of frustration. And you can also, let the frustration, feel the frustration in your body, notice it and stop and wait for it to go. Usually emotions take a very short time actually to pass through us. It's just that we tend to keep them going longer. So if you actually can pause, that's the benefit of pausing. You can let the sensation, the emotion go, and then maybe bring in some intention, some care and some love for yourself, or kind of ask yourself what it is that you need to feel like you can return to kindness again. So I think that's what comes up for me, is remembering that you also need care.
Yeah, there are two more. Should I say them both or ask one?
Maybe can we go, let's do one here, and then there's one over there.
Okay. The in chronological order. What's the most important thing transmission gave you, and what's the most important thing it took away?
Ooh. I'm guessing for the first part of the question, what's the most important thing that this transmission ceremony has given me? I think I'm going to need a lot of time to integrate, because I'm really just coming out of it. What immediately comes to mind is just the opportunity to have this very close and powerful ceremony with my teacher, to be invited in the ceremony. It really took us, I think we haven't quite figured it out, but maybe like 8 years we've been preparing for the ceremony and working together. So it's just been a really beautiful experience. I felt like, oh, this could just go on, but no, I didn't feel any sense of rush. So that is, I feel a very powerful and beautiful and supported connection. And just kind of in awe also it doesn't seem like that long since I first walked in the door. So it inspires me to want to be in the role of teacher. So I keep looking at you, but I know it's there. Be in the role of teacher. It feels like a gift, and I'm looking forward to the integration and taking away. Ooh, I really don't know. That's such a great question. I'm going to think about that. Like in the short term, just quite a bit of sleep. I'm so tired. It was so not a tremendous amount of sleep in these 3 weeks. And yeah, but I know that there's probably something deeper that I could contemplate, check back.
Thank you for your talk. I also found it delightful, and thank you for the introduction and the acknowledgement of pride as well. I really liked your analogy of the bindweed flowers, and it got me thinking about how, because bindweed can be pretty and cute or even invisible, it's not always easy to discern what is the twisted ancient karma or what is nourishing seeds that we want to plant. So I would be interested if you could just speak about your own process of that kind of discernment, because that bindweed metaphor kind of just resonated.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I think for me, one of the gifts and also difficulties of Zen practice is really that we practice in community. And so having others to reflect back to you kind of what's working, what feels like kind and skillful behavior, and maybe what doesn't over time, I think really helps me. And sometimes, I can't really see. I'll think, oh, I did such a great job in XYZ and bringing myself forward, and someone will give me feedback about an interaction that I didn't even realize, that I was maybe giving them a feeling or an experience that wasn't intended. So I think working with others, that's why Sangha is, one of the 3 treasures. It's really cannot do this alone. And literally, we're not alone. A relationship also with the teacher over time is one of the most important aspects of Zen practice. It's how we actually transmit the teaching. So this lineage passes from warm hand to warm hand. So being able to work with someone and have them witness your journey and your practice over time is a very helpful way to start to kind of recognize what it is that you're up to and kind of what you're ready to see. And it just takes time. I think that's why the bindweed does work pretty well as a metaphor, just because it's going to take time and it's not going to end. Oh, one more from Mia.
John says, thank you. You discussed ritual briefly. Is there a way to, or is it appropriate to weave Zen ritual into our ordinary day-to-day life or interactions? Is this skillful?
I think it kind of depends. So weaving it into your daily life when you don't live at a temple, certainly in your house, in your home, and when you learn some of the forms to practice them on your own, to make an altar, uh, absolutely, go for it. Like, strongly encouraged if that speaks to you. I think the second part, to weave them into maybe spaces where not every, kind of depends, right? Whether people would be open to it or how others would feel about it. I know for myself, working as a high school teacher, it's not that I'm a closet Zen practitioner, but I try to keep, like, there's something called the stink of Zen, which is kind of like you can't really adapt or be flexible to the environment that you're in, and you maybe walk around like a Zen person, which I kind of did that early on in my time at the high school, which I've now been there for 19 years. And I remember I came from Tassajara, our practice monastery, straight into this school, and I was just like, I'm Zen. And I think it just wasn't great. So at this point, people don't necessarily know unless they ask me or want to know that I'm a Zen practitioner or a Zen teacher. And I feel that for me, that feels skillful because it's also adapting and being flexible to what others need and want, and kind of I don't always need every ritual, expression physically everywhere I go, because I feel like they're also in me already. They're kind of in there. So you can try it out and see how it goes, but people are not always up for it. So I think it's important to also cultivate flexibility. All right. Good stopping moment. So thank you all so much for deciding to come here today and being present today. It looks like a really beautiful day out there. So I hope that you enjoy the space here and get to walk around a little bit. I think we're having some tea and I'll be out there. So if you want to say hi, feel free to do that. And I just wish you a wonderful practice journey. And it's been lovely spending this morning with you. So thank you very much. So we are going to chant our Bodhisattva vows, which I think everyone has a little chanty card. There you go. Thank you so much.